In this segment of the Lex Luger Shoot interview, the topic of Elizabeth is brought up. Of course, Lex Luger and Elizabeth were dating. We all know what unfortunately happened to Elizabeth. And it gets a bit personal. Lex Luger gets very emotional at times. And this shoot interview turns into more of like a police interrogation than anything else, unfortunately. Let's get right to it.
Well, we met initially just as being co-workers for a long time. But at first I always looked at Liz as kind of Randy's girl, so I always wanted to treat that with some respect to Randy and towards her, you know.
Did Randy ever say anything to you?
Never said anything to me, to my face, ever, and I never heard anything that he said was bad toward me. I mean, he had moved on with his life, and if Randy had a problem with it, Randy was always straight shooter with me, and I always was with him. I think Randy would have said something to me, to my face. Randy wasn't the kind of guy to go like bitch behind somebody's back, but I'll say it to his face. I think if Randy had a problem, he would have come up to me about it. So, no, Randy never expressed anything to me in that regard. Just slowly happened one time, just on the road one time, you know. I mean, I don't mean slowly happened. I just mean it built up to the point where I went to her room one night, you know, but we'd known each other for years before that, and nothing happened that night. You know, it was just one of those things that I respected her, she respected me, and nothing happened that very first night. But things eventually, I think a few months later, we started having a full-scale relationship.
Were you in a relationship at the time?
Yeah, I guess by legal parameters, yes. But like over half of marriages of America, I'm no less pervious than other people. My marriage, I was hanging there for my children's sake, but my marriage has basically been over for many years. And prior to me even meeting Elizabeth, probably. And but yeah, I was in a relationship at the time. I was married at the time.
And again, talking about it getting a little bit too personal, asking him these questions basically based on infidelity.
The domestic dispute you were arrested for.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us about that a little bit.
It was dismissed. The actual coroner's report, when she died, proved out that it wasn't from any kind of blow or she wasn't struck. Some neighbor calling it for a domestic dispute. It was obvious even to the medics that it was old, and it was strictly from falling down trying to walk a big dog and a puppy that's playful. And I was putting Neosporin on it, and we were putting ice on it for and everything for 4 or 5 days before the cops ever showed up at my house. So they tried to make it look like I had punched her or something ridiculous like that. And even my ex-wife, who I'm sure hates my guts, will tell you that I never raised a hand to a woman, or I wasn't raised that way, nor to her, our entire marriage. I think if I had a tendency, it would have maybe popped up once in a while in a 20-plus year marriage. So as much as my ex-wife might hate me right now, even she would vouch for that. So that whole thing was once again, I call it getting Lex Lugered. I don't mean that as I'm a big deal. I just mean that sometimes, boy, they come with 8 cop cars. I mean, one cop car shows up, then there's 7 more, and you're like, oh my God. Then there's an ambulance and a fire truck, and you're like, you guys gotta be kidding me. You know what I mean? That's just the most ridiculous stuff I've ever seen in my life. I mean, just unbelievable.
What were your feelings the next day? I guess you were out on bond, and it was a major...
Next day of what?
After you were arrested, you were put in jail, but I guess you got out.
That was after Liz's death.
You weren't in jail for the domestic dispute?
Yeah, but the press wasn't anything about that even reported.
No,
nothing, and that was dismissed and proven by the coroner's report when she died shortly thereafter. That had nothing to do with any kind of blow. I guess they can tell that from the thing. Besides, it was her right cheek, and I'm right-handed, so that, yeah, I would sock 105-pound Liz. I'd be afraid I'd kill her. But, I mean, that's the most stupidest, ridiculous rumor I could ever imagine being portrayed. That was portrayed. But once again, people can say what they want to say about you, and you got take the really bad sometimes with the really good things that happen to you. You might get table first at a restaurant, and if they get on in the news or they want something to be true or make it sound like it's true, they can really run with it, man. They really can. And there's, my lawyer asked me not to respond to it, so I kept quiet throughout it all. And with Liz's death, I kept quiet out of respect to her family. He asked me not to say anything, and I have respected that about her death. They asked me not to say anything, and they kept the funeral private, everything private, the whole 9 yards. They didn't want anything to be done or said out of respect to Liz and to her family, and the respect that I have for her, and the love that I've had for her. I never responded to any of that bullshit.
Now, this part of the interview, I think the interviewer is out of line asking this specific question. Let's take a listen and look at Lex Luger's reaction. Definitely not happy with the question.
Why weren't you at her funeral?
I was in jail.
Okay. When the police came the evening or the morning of her death, is the same morning?
Yeah, for some mysterious reason on 911 medical emergency, a bunch of police showed up at my place.
And you were arrested?
No,
Not in conjunction?
I wasn't arrested. I sat there for 3 hours in the front lawn before they even told me Liz was dead, and they knew for 2 hours. They wouldn't let me back in, so saying to go ahead and take pictures. A few pictures, and then we'll let you back in. And they took me to the station. I go, I'm under arrest or something? They go, no. I go, why can't I go back inside? I go, well, we think you're upset, and which I was, obviously, very distraught. And we want to talk to you about what happened back at the station, and we'll get your Diet Coke and everything. Went there, and they were going to let me go. So we did the preliminary autopsy, and everything's cool, and there's no foul play. And they said, call your friend to get a ride home, or wants to call you a taxi. And then all of a sudden they said, oh, there's a little twist. I'm like, what? Well, we found something. I go, I thought you were just taking pictures. And the guy had told me, we're not going to go through any of your personal stuff, effects, opening, crubbages, nothing. We just need to finish the scene, and then you're going to be free to go home now. And we're done at the scene and everything else. We got the preliminary autopsy done, and you're free to go and all that stuff. And we'll let you get into your morning in a proper way. And then all of a sudden there was a twist. So,
has that problem been cleared up? Or
no.
No.
It's pending.
Okay.
And they're really dragging their feet on that too.
Was there any feelings at the moments after her death, when you found out about her death, that maybe they were questioning you and putting blame on you for the death?
I can't stop people from doing that, but I know in my heart what she felt towards me and what I felt towards her, and there's nothing but love there. And
again, this is where it gets very emotional for Lex Luger.
WWE Confidential and then SmackDown ran pieces following that. Did you see those pieces at all?
I didn't watch any wrestling, any TV. I was way too emotionally distressed and despondent over her death. I didn't watch any wrestling for a long, long time, man. I mean, Liz is the one who suffered the most. She's not with us anymore, so someone wants to say something bad about me, and I'm still walking around, I gotta be a man, take it, I'm not gonna cry or bitch and moan about it, you know what I mean? But I know the truth. She stand next to me 1 minute, and the next minute I'm calling 911. I didn't try to sanitize my house, call a lawyer, nothing. All I cared about was Liz, and 911 came, and the next thing I know, I'm getting arrested. It had nothing to do with Liz's death, so I don't understand it. And then I spent my first couple of days of mourning in jail, with in a jail cell instead of being able to be with friends and family, so it was rough.
Who was the first one in the business to call you or contact you?
Oh, gosh, man. A lot of guys did. Kevin Nash did, Sting did, Rick Steiner, Scotty Steiner, guys I'd known best.
Were you
The
surprised?
rest of the people probably didn't have my numbers. I changed all my numbers. I had everybody from National Enquirer to name it, call me, so I had to change all my numbers. So only people who knew me really well could get my number at that time. I changed all my numbers. And I never went back to our townhouse that I bought, that we moved into. I leased it out. I never went back there and stayed there another night. I got a condo rented a condo elsewhere. I never could sleep there again.
Would you say that your life is back to normal routine?
It'll never be normal after something like that, man. Your life's never normal. You know, you gotta crawl until you can walk, then walk before you can, you know, try to run again. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to take a step at a time, man. Try to get on back on my feet. Something like that really throws you. I mean, you know, man.